welcome back to our live Thursday evening show here on Sheffield Live TV, which is celebrating a birthday. It's a 4th anniversary of the TV service here, which also means it's a happy 4 years for us.
Fantastic
James.
stuff. Well done.
To you. Yeah, to you. I mean, they've put up with us for 4 years. Do we know that they're still putting up with us?
Can't believe it, to be honest with you. Yeah, can't believe it. But here we are. Yeah, and thank you for watching as well. You know.
Absolutely, thank you. You know, and in particular, thanks to every single guest we've had on the show. I tried to round up and produce a full list on Twitter, and I fell well short. I kept thinking, oh, I've forgotten Nicky Weaver. I forgot to put down of all people. Nick Matthew, I nearly forgot to put down, but he's here in the studio.
You were getting all those in your mentions on Twitter as well, weren't you, last night?
Yeah, he tagged me on every one of those reminders. I appreciated all 47 tweets.
Yeah, there were quite a lot, weren't there? Over the top. It's great that you could join us again, and it's rather a different scenario. We were talking just before the break about that difficult transition for an athlete in any sport, you know, between being full on active and then suddenly the adrenaline's gone and everything. And, you know, I don't want to belittle a serious subject because it's not happening with you, and that's great, but a lot of sporting stars are talking about, very frankly and openly, about depression.
But it's
suffering depression now. Is that something you can understand, you know, even though you've not been there yourself?
It's the biggest thing that I have planned and prepared for probably 2 years, really. You know, knowing that eventually it will come to an end, and what you're going to try and set up to make sure that transition is as smooth as possible. And you know, I read a lot of different things. I think it was a big one with Gail Ems, the badminton player, for example, and different ones. I just read everything and anything about ex-players retiring. What have they done? What have they learned? Everything. And I took loads from that and then made, you know, my own, I guess, path. But I think the hardest thing is probably actually when you're in it, because you can very much have a mentality, well, I don't want to think about that. I want to maximise the here and now. But then you think, well, oh, an injury is something, well, this could actually end pretty quickly here. I need to be prepared. And then you can go overboard and plan too much and forget about the here and now. So it's all about finding a balance.
It's difficult as well, because there's somebody like Andrew Flintoff, for example, and I think he's probably had one of the most seamless transitions, even though he has struggled himself, he's admitted that. But then now he does all the telly stuff, he does the podcast, he's everywhere, and but that's different when, like a Gail Ems or yourself, when you're not quite on that sort of public, you know, that public sort of consciousness, if you like. So you're not going to get all the big Sky TV gigs all the time or whatever. It's difficult.
Yeah, of course. And like I fully respected the depression side of it, like you said. And I think there was moments in my career where I stopped enjoying what I did, and you were down and thinking, oh, there's got to be more to life than this. I think I want to stop. I don't want to do it anymore. And you know, you're probably only very on that bottom rung of like the depression ladder, but you're still probably, you know, ticking those boxes from time to time because you're slogging your guts out. It can be soul searching at times. You're halfway around the world and you're injured, you lose your matches, you don't want to be there, you've got your family at home. So it was something I took very seriously setting up, and my bottom line was I'd be foolish to try and leave behind the sport that has been my life and I love and I'm still passionate about. But at the same time, I wanted to still maintain that usefulness and that visibility and stuff. So that's been, and I'm still very early days into retirement, so it's still something that I'm trying to achieve the balance.
You planned for it, and that's interesting that you were so aware of it.
Some people are not fortunate enough for that to happen, by the way. You know, if you've got an injury, stops you one day to the next. You know, I was fortunate enough that I was able to sort of get into my last season, for example, and set a date and say I'm going to play through this season. And it gave me a target, so then everything could then be planned and set up for that. But that put different pressures, because every time I went somewhere, it's the last time I was going to go to New York, so for the tournament. So you wanted to do well every time, the last thing, and put different pressures. But I'm glad I did it because it meant that I was open and honest, and I was able to plan for what's next. And I know everyone's not that lucky.
You've been a feted and quite rightly celebrated figure. There's been a lot of adulation, albeit not quite as much in squash as you deserve as there is in other sports, but you're now in a part of your life where, you know, you're not going to be thunderously acclaimed on a squash court. You know, you will be in a dinner and in a TV show or whatever, but you know what I mean?
They'll wheel me back out and stuff at some point.
You'll be clapped politely.
Exactly. But no, I'm very aware that you're quickly forgotten, and as you quite rightly said, it's not the highest profile of sports. So, you know, I guess, you know, you might trying to maintain that relevance where you can, the visibility, and you know, not just make a career for yourself, but try and grow the sport, because, you know, the popularity of it is not the same as what it was probably in the 80s. No. You know, it's gradually gone down, but it is.
That was Jonah Barrington.
And Jonah Barrington, etc. But in pockets, you know, different parts of the world, different parts of the country is showing growth. It's just in the ones where it's not, and you can hopefully play a role in trying to help that now.
And that motivates you to the extent that it can replace that, fill that void for you?
Why not? That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
You know, I'm passionate about that, passionate about creating the next world champion who's based out of Sheffield, but also passionate about going into a school and showcasing squash to people who've never seen it for the first time. To me, they're sort of quite equal, and hopefully that variety of what I do will hopefully help me have as much longevity in that as I did when I was sort of on the other end of it, really.
Is there a potential world champion?
You've got some good players, Nick.
Some good ones, yeah. There's some good ones, but, you know, I'm not going to put any pressure on anyone just yet.
Come on, why not? Wait, come on. So in the area, Nick Wall is one.
An Wall's a guy, great. You know, I mean, love to take credit for Nick. I've sort of helped mentor him a little bit, and he's trained with me whilst I've been on the tour, but I've very much been a bit of an elder sort of training partner for him. I came full circle. I used to train with his dad, so I really felt my age when I was starting to get run around by his son.
Yeah.
But no, Neil Gowrie, who's the head pro of my academy and at Hallamshire, he's coached Nick since he was 12, and Nick is now #1 in England under 19, just got the silver medal with England in the World Team Championships in India, and he's just gone professional at 18, so without putting pressure on him, there's a homegrown Sheffield. He's a blade, unfortunately, and he goes to all the home matches, so he's got a bit of education still to go, but his squash is not bad.
Good stuff. And Charlotte as well, Charlotte Jagger, who's in Sheffield. It's important to have the girls' side of it as well. And we seem to breed lefties. Now, our last 3 or 4 top players have all been lefties, so I don't know if there's something in the water in Sheffield. But,
strange. What about a media career? Because this, I mean, he speaks well, doesn't he?
You can't shut him up.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, what
he's good.
about
You're the only
in
guest
media?
that said you weren't talking, we'd be struggling.
Well, I'm making up for the last time I was on when I was sat next to Neil Warnock, and I said about 3 words in the whole show. I couldn't get a word in, so I'm making up for it today.
I must apologise for that.
It's fine, it was fun.
No, it was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Especially getting the Blades House thing going. His phone's going.
Yeah, everywhere. It's all going wrong.
Have you seen this, by the way? From
incredible.
He was walking around with it on earlier.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, awesome. I might be
Commonwealth Games.
It's pretty good, that, isn't it?
Gold medal from Glasgow. Yeah,
it's brilliant.
It's quite heavy, isn't it?
People do weird and wonderful things with these medals, don't they? You've not done any melting down or anything.
I tried to melt down the silver one into a bit of jewellery for my wife, but it didn't work.
Right, I'm going to talk to him about VAR in a minute, Nick, because you know, there was some controversy in one of your final games, wasn't there?
There always is.
There always is controversy. You had a right go at the referee here.
Right, okay.
Yeah, you did, didn't you?
I'm so mellowed now. It seems totally out of character. That
you did.
I've seen you on a squash court there, even in like a charity game.
You said the decision was a shocker, to quote you. I'm sure you'll be. I'll tell you what. Bring Nick back in on that in a minute. Have you got anything to say by way of roundup?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, we have.
I've got it. Digitally. I've taken my phone case off because it might offend some of the Sheffield Wednesday fans who are watching. But Millwall, they're the opponents for the Blades this weekend away from home after that win last week against Preston. They made hard work of it, didn't they? Wednesday, though, all eyes on them. Tomorrow night, they've got Leeds United. Alan, are you going to be at that one? You're usually there for these big occasions, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm doing TalkSport that one.
Right, brilliant.
Just updates. I don't kid myself that anybody's going to sit at home and wait for my updates on the game, but anybody driving around can.
Brilliant stuff.
Can you hear that?
Yeah. So I mean, that win at Villa, important as well, wasn't it, last week?
Absolutely, yeah.
I've got a bit of momentum, haven't they, Wednesday? Sort of building a bit, would you say?
They've won 4 out of 6 now, and what we have to avoid is that overreaction to a defeat. Look, you're going to lose football matches.
Yeah.
You know, it's a fact of life. It's just important. I know they played badly at Nottingham Forest, but it's important to say, hey, that was a shocker, you were rubbish.
Yeah.
And move on. Don't just castigate the manager and the players and write them all off, because then you get a game like at Villa. So I think Sheffield Wednesday are in position to compete for the top 6. Never mind what I think. Yeah. Here's Mr. Matthew. What do you think this team is capable of? What's your feeling about the manager and the way that he's playing, trying to play, etc.?
Yeah, I think I always get shot down when I give my opinion on football. I get told to stick to what I know, but we're all fans, aren't we? We've all got an opinion, and I think it's probably a bit of a transitional season for Wednesday. I think that always might be in shooting distance of the top 6 and think, a couple of wins. But they've always got that carrot there. But I think, it's been a number of years since we've had this many youngsters coming through in the team. It's good. You've got, 3 in the back line alone. Goalkeeper, 2 good young goalkeepers. They've had a little bit of a problem, obviously, with a couple of the youngsters up the top end of the pitch leaving on these little loopholes that are existing now in football. But generally speaking, there's a few youngsters come through. A few of the senior players are perhaps in either the last year or have just moved on. Some of the big wages are possibly moving to the side. So I don't know if they've got enough of those sort of senior players at the peak of their game to go all the way. But I think there's a nice balance, and in a year or two, those young players hopefully will have then become leaders out there on the pitch. I think a lot relies currently on Bannon and Reach, and that Lees stays fit at the back. Those 3, to be honest, I think are reliant on. But no, it's good, we're in there. But whether they can really... I don't think they're as good a side as when they got to the playoff final, particularly.
Where do you stand on Forestieri then? Because he's available now for the Leeds game. I doubt very much we'll bring him straight back into a team that's done so well at Aston Villa. But do you feel, perhaps as I do, that if they are to get into the top 6 this season, that he will have to play a significant part?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want that, that over... He's certainly the game changer that they've got in the team, that can beat a man, can get the crowd on their feet, turn a 0-0 or a 1-1 into 3 points. But it's also nice to see, those players who've been on the fringes for a few years coming back in, like Mateus has come back and looked quite good the last few games. Zhao, back end of last season and this season, is scoring again. He was farmed out on loan, was he, not long ago? Nuhu looked like he was out the club, gone. And then last year he was, he was taking corners and coming in and beating 4 players and bending it in the top corner.
He's not doing it this time. Not so far, no.
But, it's actually funny that some of the players who weren't in the team when they were in the playoffs have actually now come back into the team, and then the youngsters have come through. So I think that's what I mean by it's probably more of a transitional time.
But it's an exciting prospect now, and there's only a couple of points in between the Owls and the Blades. I think Josh Luque is doing a good job. But
definitely steadied things, and there's no grumblings that I've heard. Is he came in that we had a couple, we sort of rode the wave for a couple of seasons under Carlos there, certainly for 18 months I would say. And he was a character, wasn't he, and the crowd got behind him, but then it unravelled a little bit for one reason or another that we all know. And I think he had a little bit of he came into a little bit of a the house was upside down a little bit when he walked in, so he's done a good job of getting things on a level footing again. Steadied it quite
very
almost unassumingly as well.
Very different methods. I think he's got more discipline back into the place. I think Carlos was perhaps more relaxed in the way that he conducted it.
Which worked maybe short term. So we'll see. And like I say, he's got the youngsters in, which is any club gets behind them. If you mentioned if you have a loss,
correct.
If you've got a few homegrown players in, you're not on their back as much as if you just bought someone in. You expect for 20 grand a week, whatever, 7 million, you expect them to perform straight away.
Don't they?
Whereas the young guys have got that. The fans see themselves on the pitch, don't they? Which always helps.
I think it's cleansed the atmosphere, freshened it, having those young players.
I think United will have a better season personally. I'm going to cause a few stirs by saying this, but I think United will finish above Wednesday again, personally. I think they're a lot more closer to being challengers currently than
the turning point last season was the derby, wasn't it? The first derby at Hillsborough. That was kind of, I know, neither side came in good form, but then after that, the Blades went on a good run. Wednesday then just sort of kind of capitulated for the next couple of months. How important do you think the first derby is going to be?
Yeah, it's going to be great. And I don't think that, when I'd like to think that when someone capitulated the same, all right, they came back into the game, but, there was clear which was the better team on that day. They came back, didn't they, to 2-2 for about 3 seconds. But I think United just look like more of a consistent team to me. They can grind out wins when they're not playing well, all right. Even if they didn't play well, they drew a 0-0 when they didn't play well. Whereas Wednesday might have lost that game when they didn't play well. That's probably the slight difference between the two teams right now.
It's also all relative in football. There's only a couple of points in it. And some Wednesdayites say to me, how is it that Chris Wilder gets praised to the heavens all the time, when it is such a slender gap? But I think you have to look at the pay league table, the wages league table, Sheffield United, as far as I know, and I'm pretty reliably informed, are 17th in the Championship. So while ever they're above that level and they're in 4th place at the moment, the manager's doing a phenomenal job.
He's done a good job wherever it's been, hasn't he?
Absolutely phenomenal job.
Right the way through. He's proved himself, hasn't he, right the way through. So
yeah, he deserves the praise that he gets.
He does indeed. We'll rattle through what else is going on, because the thing is, if Wednesday playing on Friday night, the Blades are away on Saturday. Why not go and watch some non-league? Hallam, they're at home. They beat Harworth last weekend 5-1. They're in the FA Trophy against Prescott this weekend at Sandygate. Sheffield, they're also in action at home at the Coach and Horses. Stocksbridge are out with the FA Trophy, so no game for them. But Sheffield United women in the Women's Super League 2, they're at home this weekend. They actually play against Aston Villa at Bramall Lane. So a great opportunity for Carla Ward's side on Sunday, 2 p.m. kickoff. So if you need a bit of a football fix, there's 3 good opportunities to get one there in the Sheffield area. Sheffield Eagles, they've got their last game of the season against Rochdale on Sunday. And Sheffield Sharks, they've got a double header as well. They're at the EIS tomorrow night against Surrey Scorchers, 7:30 tip-off. The Sheffield Steelers, we'll finish with them. They beat Dundee Stars last night. Remarkable 3-2 win. They were 2-0 down. But Paul Thompson was absolutely furious. He came off at the end, said, not good enough, the team need to have a look at themselves, or the players need to work a little bit harder. Astonishing, you don't get that in football, do you?
Not to that extent. He said he was appalled. The language was unbelievable, and you had to pinch yourself and remind yourself that they actually won that game. He was imagine what he said in the dressing room. You know, he was cooled down by the time that he was coming on. It was memorable
with ice hockey players and really sticks and pads about.
You've got nobody to do that in squash, have you? You come off the court and it could be a rare bad day for you. You've not had many, correct? No, I said if I listened to your titles, we'd never have time for anything else. But does anybody give you a rollicking when you come off?
Yeah.
Or is it just you?
I mean, you've got that unique situation in squash where you've got the 2 minutes in between games where your coach can actually talk to you. So no Serena Williams. Well, you could have that issue, but in between games you're allowed to coach. Whereas in tennis, obviously, once the match starts, they're not allowed to speak to their coach until the end. Whereas in squash, you do have that window. So there's been times when you do get the, old rocket in that 2 minute period.
But you're employing him to give you a rocket.
Well,
that's effectively
sometimes
what it is.
Sometimes it's what you need. I think it's like in anything. If you got that every single time, you'd probably be like, But
has he ever surprised you?
But actually, sometimes you need the home truth. It's how you react to it.
What kind of some players hate kind of criticism. They need, you do brilliantly, son. They need kind of the pat on the back, don't they?
Yeah.
What kind of player were you? And what would you be like if you were a coach in the future to a player?
When I learned, one of the biggest lessons I learned is my coach. He always coached me as a person, and first, and then player second.
Yeah.
And the psychology of that is so important. I remember he was actually David Pearson. Was good. He was the national coach for 15 years, and the first time I ever got selected for England, it's a 3-man team, and I was the 4th highest ranked. So I played a few times in the sort of pool stages, the early knockouts, and then once it got to the quarter-final, it was like, right, I'm benched now for the whole time. And I might even have missed the last 16 as well. I was benched, basically. And you could see I was a bit down at morning practice, and he pulled me to one side and he went, the reason you're not being picked is I can't trust you. You're not consistent enough. One day you can be top 20 in the world, next day you can lose to 120 in the world. You're not consistent. A big match for England, we can't trust you. Our number 3, it was James Wilsrop, who's been a big rival of mine, went down injured, and I had to play the semi-final against France. I was first on, and I went out and played like an absolute demon because I was like, I'm proving you wrong.
Yeah.
And he sort of, he sat there with a knowing smile on his face because he sort of knew that had really annoyed me.
Yeah.
And that I'd be doing that. So it's great. It was great psychology. Then other times he's been, arm around you. So he's knowing in it, as like you said, he's knowing the character.
We've got 4 minutes left. You've got a personal insight in a moment into something that you were involved in with Nick. I want to ask you just briefly about this. Having a go at the officials, saying it was a shocking decision.
I thought you'd forgotten about that.
No, I haven't forgotten about it. This was in your 701st World Tour match.
Yeah, almost the last.
It was in the last 16 game, Rafael Candra. It made the difference between being 2-1 up or 2-1 down. A shocker, you said.
That's probably.
Have you calmed down?
That was probably the most PC I've ever been with a referee. No.
Yeah.
I think it was, there's a lot of controversy into VAR in football, how to come in. It's sort of, it's never always going to get it right to everyone, but what works quite well in squash is you get one a game.
Yeah.
If you get it right, you keep it. So the number of times where you use it and then it gets to a big point like that and you've already used it and you're frustrated because you want to use it. And I propose a similar thing in football. So you're not getting a stop-start all the time. Each team captain, because they're not going to have the... Just like in cricket. You know,
cricket works so well.
Cricket works well. So if the football captain, if you think it's an offside goal, you think handballed it, right, review. You have to do it within 5 seconds, whatever. Yeah. And if you get it wrong, then you've lost it for that half. You may be at one each 45 minutes. And if you don't use it, then you know that's it. And then for me, it's like then if it does get to 91st minute and you know that the goal's offside, but it was given, and you've already used your thing, then there's no one else to blame other than yourself because you've used it.
Yeah, I agree.
That's my proposal. It keeps the game flowing.
I think it's a good one. You see that a lot in cricket, and the argument was the theatre of it. You know, if you're in the ground, you don't know what's being said. Now they play what the third umpire's saying over the tannoy, and it adds to it. You know, I've been at a couple of cricket matches this year where there's been a big decision. You're all turning around looking at the screen, and you can hear it, and you know it's going to be out, and it's brilliant. It adds to the
other problem with football is everyone who's in the ground live. On TV, you can see what's going on, but in the ground live, everyone's going, well, what's going on? It just stops.
That needs
it doesn't really work.
No.
Once a half would be fine. When it happened, it happened on one match. Did it like 6 times in a row? You're going, come on, let's just play.
Okay, one little story to finish.
Yeah, well, it's not really a story. We're just saying, I saw the film of you, and obviously I was there. It was great. You know, you invited me to come along. It was absolutely brilliant. It was a film of your career, like a documentary, wasn't it? It was sort of a film documentary. It was brilliant. You sort of featured it. You had your coaches and all these other people, and the gold medal that's on the table here is probably the most important one. And you were actually tearing up, weren't you, talking about that? And I thought that was quite good. You can see he's getting a bit emotional now. It's a steely competitor, but looking back on that, quite emotional, wasn't it for you?
That was probably the most emotional one. Touched upon it at the start, but yeah, literally got the phone call, went for a scan. My knee just locked out one day, doing the easiest, most innocuous session I'm ever going to do in my life. Just practicing easy with my coach, and the knee just locked out. Went for a scan. And the doctor rang me and said, and I thought, well, that's it. There's no way 4.5 weeks I'm gonna, it was a, 8-week rehab, and the physios, mapped it all out and calculated it, and sort of slept with the ice machine on at nights, and my wife was heavily pregnant as well, and I'm sitting foot up on the sofa like this, going, can you just fetch me dinner? Can you fetch me a glass of water? So I had to win. I had no choice but to win, otherwise she'd have kicked me out. Yeah, basically.
It was great. It was great. So I know when he brought that in, I knew how much that meant to Nick.
You were flat out on the court, as I remember, after winning that.
There was a thing, I managed to just about get the knee up and kiss it because it sort of was hanging on by a thread, and the physio deserves. Jade, our physio, actually bizarrely set me up with my wife because they used to work together back in the day. So I owe her a debt, more than one debt of gratitude.
Wow, you're a Commonwealth gold, and a marriage, and a daughter,
and a wife.
Well, she didn't give me the daughter.
No, she didn't.
No, that'd be weird.
That would be controversial.
Not a bad day's work, I suppose. Well, Nick, thanks so much. Yeah. It's been brilliant to see you again. I hope we see you again.
Yeah, I'd like to be back.
Yeah. And to bring the Commonwealth gold in has been a highlight for James and I, because that's as close as
we're going to get.
Well, me anyway, but I'm not sure about you.
You're playing golf with Matt Fitzpatrick tomorrow.
Yeah. There's no gold medals on the line there.
Anyway, thanks, guys. It'll be on YouTube this evening. If you missed, we're back with another show next week. It remains for me to thank Nick. Thank you, James. See you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thanks, guys.